What do rich people spend money on that we could never imagine exists?
I did some work at a guy's house, who had an underground parking garage installed under his library so he could have more guests over. It fit 80 cars. 80.
A household chief of staff, not a butler. A logistical CEO for their personal lives who manages the pilots, the yacht crew, the multiple estate managers, the nannies, the art curator, and the person who makes sure the fridge in their fourth home is stocked before they arrive. They're buying a complete insulation from the friction of reality.
I used to work for a privately held company run and owned by one individual who was earning $2 to $3 million a year. He asked me if I was interested in making extra money running errands for him. One of the errands was to measure the built-in bookshelves in his massive new house, then going to Barnes & Noble to buy enough books to fill every inch of the shelves. The only prerequisite was that the books had to make him appear well-read and intelligent. He gave me a credit card and I spent 6 hours loading a U-Haul with $11,000 worth of books. After that, I spent an entire weekend arranging the books on the shelves. He called me back out a couple of weeks later to rough up the books because it was obvious they had never been read. All in all, he paid me around $5,000, plus meals while I was there, to make strangers think he read a lot.
Guy spent $30 million to line the banks of a river so his guests wouldn't get their feet muddy when they went swimming. I've told this story before, but my brother worked for a fireworks company. This billionaire hired him to do a private show. That alone was $28,000.
Child care for their autistic children. I dated a woman a decade ago who was a PhD in child psychology, and she made a literal fortune being a babysitter for ultra-wealthy kids on the spectrum. Just to take an ad hoc FaceTime call, if the kids were having a meltdown when she wasn't there, it was $500 every 15 minutes, took multiple of these calls daily, sometimes a dozen different 5 to 10-minute calls in a day from the same family, billed in at the start of the first minute of each 15-minute block. A 16-minute call was $1,000. It was $1,000 an hour for her to be 1:1 with the kids, and folks had her booked out for months, to watch their kids on weekends, date nights, etc. And she had a racket where she had a play group and would get all of them together in a pack and each kid was $500 per hour and she'd have 10 to 15 of them. She was amazing with kids and had an incredible way of dealing with extreme cases, but she was making $4 to $6 million a year, which was pretty ridiculous for playing board games most of the time.
24/7 nanny coverage per kid, with 3 kids. They had 12 total nannies on staff plus or minus at any given time to cover weekends, holidays, days off, etc. I used to work at their kids' private school in the IT department, and they hired me to do some IT stuff at their home, as well as tutor one of their older kids. Instead of paying me cash, they would forward my email bill to the family office in NYC, and I would get an overnight FedEx package with a check every week. They also got divorced and bought mansions next to each other for the kids' sake. The mom found one for sale that she liked, and then went to the neighbor directly next door, and made them an offer I guess they could not refuse. I have dealt with many high net worth people, and they are usually crappy, and so are their kids. This particular family was unfazed by their wealth. They were the nicest, most down-to-earth people, and their kids were awesome. Before doing some work for them, I knew the kids from school, and you would have never known how wealthy and privileged they were. They were the nicest, most humble, helpful kids with a crazy amount of empathy for their age. They were an old money family, very old money, and I think it just never bothered them. They did a great job raising their kids, as is evident by the fact that you would have thought they were still married, as they attended all school functions together, talked to each other, etc. I only found out they were divorced when I was helping their son for the first time, and he said he needed to run to his dad's house to get something. The private school I was working at needed to raise $10 million for an expansion. This family offered to match all donations, up to $5 million. Not only did they match every donation, even after crossing $5 million, they also donated another $10 million to the school, so over $15 million total out of their pocket to the school. We only found out about their donations a few years ago. At the time, we were told it was an anonymous matching gift and an anonymous donation. They did not want anything named after them, or any recognition, at all while their kids were still going to school there.
Knew this one dude who bought a vacant piece of land in the Hollywood Hills just to pour asphalt over it so his guests had a valet parking spot right next to the mansion we were throwing a huge party at. The asphalt had just a few days to dry before cars started showing up. It came close to the wire and the guests in their exotic imported sports cars never knew. Also, same guy would have sushi from Japan flown into the US and before eating it would need to see a certification that the fish was caught no more than 15 hours prior. He would also pay the restaurant tons of money to close down so he could eat the sushi in peace alone with his wife. The guy was an a-hole, by the way.